Firstly, we got Blac Chyna. Wendy Williams loves talking about the Kardashians, so when Rob Kardashian started seeing Blac Chyna, Wendy did not hold her tongue on what she thought Chyna's true intentions for the relationship were. Wendy made it clear she believes Chyna never loved Rob, she was only there for the money. She even claims that Chyna came, quote, from a pole, and because of this she's always scheming, even including her mother Tokyo Toni in the conversation, claiming that Toni raised Chyna to be that way. Wendy said, quote, "It's very fun to watch she and her mom Tokyo Toni come up off the backs of people who don't see through their ruse." But Chyna did not take this lying down and clapped back on Instagram. Chyna wrote, quote, "Wendy, Wendy, Wendy, you lost your mother effing mind. How dare you speak on me, my fiance, and my mom like you were at the Christmas table with us. I find it so funny how you love to talk about Rob and his insecurities, like at one point in time you weren't a fat 400-pound person on the radio." Next up, Will Smith. Will Smith is considered an unproblematic king because he rarely gets into scandals or causes drama with other people, but he just couldn't hold his tongue on his disdain for Wendy Williams, and he decided to rap about her in one of his songs to try and get through to her. On the track, Mr. Nice Guy, Will Smith rapped, quote, "Wendy Williams, you don't know me. I'm not your punching bag. You gonna blow me up, girl, you better leave me alone before I buy your radio station and send you home." And Will is not the only musician who has called out Wendy in their music. Mariah Carey, Tupac, and Jay-Z have all made negative comments about Wendy in their songs. When Wendy was asked how it felt to have so many negative words about her in music, she responded, quote, "Without those song mentions, I might not be on TV right now. There's a large segment who may have never heard about me on the radio, but they heard Tupac tell me I needed to go to Jenny Craig, or Mariah Carey tell me that I'm up in her business, so I love them for that." Clearly, Wendy believes all press is good press. Next up, Jennifer Lawrence. After nude photos of Jennifer Lawrence were leaked to the public, Wendy discussed them on her show. At the time, Jennifer herself commented on the leak, saying that anyone who looked at the photos was committing an assault on her because they were only meant for her boyfriend at the time's eyes. Adding, quote, "It's my body and it should be my choice, and the fact that it's not my choice is absolutely disgusting." Wendy clapped back admitting that she had looked at the photos, saying, quote, "It's not your choice, it's the cloud and I've looked several times, so I guess I'm disgusting for looking?" Then Wendy kind of victim shamed, saying that it was Jen's fault for taking the photos in the first place. Wendy added, quote, "Besides Jen, you don't look bad under your clothes, and I think the hackathon has actually made your career even hotter. Because she was red hot before, but now it's like a heat-seeking missile hot, so hold your head up with pride." Next up, Keke Palmer. Keke Palmer called out Wendy Williams on her own show after Wendy did not support Keke in a feud with Trey Songz. Keke went on the show to promote her memoir, and while there, Wendy asked Keke for updates on her lawsuit against Trey Songz. The conflict between them was that Trey wanted to use footage of Keke in one of his music videos, and she didn't want to do that, and instead of respecting her wishes, he intimidated her and essentially tried to force a cameo in the music video. She actually hid in a closet while she waited for an Uber, and Trey used footage of her in the music video anyway. When asked about the situation, Keke told Wendy, quote, "I don't want to keep browbeating on one situation, but I will say, Wendy, I would have loved to turn on your show and saw you a little more compassionate and less accusatory and ridiculing." Wendy quickly responded that she couldn't do that, and Keke clapped back, quote, "Why, girl, because the gag is, you weren't even there." Keke continued that people like Wendy should not be promoting men putting women into intimidating situations that they don't want to be in. Next up, Swavy. The most recent thing that Wendy Williams got backlash for was her strange and insensitive comments talking about the murder of a TikTok star named Swavy. Wendy started off the segment saying that she had no idea who he was, and nobody in the audience would probably know either. Then she started talking about his TikTok followers and how he has more followers than her. Then her producer Norman chimed in that Wendy has more followers than him on Instagram, not TikTok. Then, out of nowhere, Wendy explains that the reason they're even talking about him is because he was recently killed. He died at the age of 19, and Wendy described the situation, while adding that nobody is currently in custody, so the case will most likely not be solved. This clip then went viral online, with people calling out Wendy for how strange and insensitive the segment was. Swavy's mother, Chanel Clark, told Philadelphia CBS 3 that she didn't appreciate Williams' commentary. She said, quote, "Like as a mother, Wendy Williams, how dare you? So disrespectful. I used to watch you as a child, and even though you have a gossip show and all that, you didn't even know my son." Next up, Beyonce. In 2012, Wendy did the unthinkable and decided to bash Beyonce on her show. Wendy was talking about Beyonce's HBO documentary and how excited she was to watch it, even calling herself a Beyonce fan. But then Wendy decided to bash Beyonce for no reason. adding, quote, "I'm watching because fortunately one of the TVs in our kitchen has closed captioning, so I'll be able to understand what she says. You know, Beyonce can't talk. Beyonce sounds like she has a 5th grade education. She can't talk." Around that same time, Wendy also promoted a theory that Beyonce and Jay-Z had paid Rachel Roy to stir up drama ahead of the Lemonade album release. Wendy said, quote, "So Rachel Roy, first of all, you're not this fighting girl, unless you're on Jay-Z and Beyonce's payroll and they pay you to mix it up for, I guess, sales for the Lemonade." After these comments against Beyonce, the Bayhive went crazy and started bashing Wendy online. Next up, Ariana Grande. In 2015, when Wendy was talking about the relationship between Big Sean and Ariana Grande, she decided to trash Ariana for her small stature. Wendy said, quote, "She's 21, she'll forever look 12, and I don't mean that in a good way. It's nice to look younger than you are. When you look too young, then you're short. She's only like 4'11". I don't look at her as like a woman." After these comments, Wendy was called out for body shaming. The whole incident got so much backlash that #CancelWendyWilliams started trending on Twitter afterwards. This was sadly not the last time Wendy trashed Ariana for how she looked, whether it be for her outfit choices or just her body in general. And lastly, Nicki Minaj. Nicki and Wendy have a long history, with both of them making remarks at the other over the years. But things were the worst after Wendy was speaking about Nicki's marriage to Kenneth Petty. This was after reports surfaced that Petty had served jail time for numerous crimes. Nicki called out Wendy during a segment of Queen Radio, saying, quote, "It's not about doing your job. There are people who report the news and there are people who do it with an evil intent in their heart. Viciousness. And I pray for you because I know you're hurting and I know you must be sick and humiliated." Adding, quote, "I didn't know that in our society you have to be plagued by your past. I didn't know that people can't turn over a new leaf. I didn't know that your viciousness and evilness was this deep-rooted." Nicki then decided to take some punches of her own and called out Wendy for her own failed marriage that was plagued with cheating rumors throughout. Adding, quote, "But I understand why now. When a woman isn't really being loved at home, the viciousness is a different type. So I really wanted to pray for you today because look at where you are now in your life. Look at what age you are. You're sat up there being vicious all this time and paid for that man's mistress all these years."
Starting off this countdown, we have Carlos Mencia. Comedian Carlos Mencia claims that Joe Rogan sabotaged his career. It all started in 2007 when Joe Rogan humiliated him live on stage in Los Angeles. Rogan called Carlos out for stealing jokes from other comics and labeled him as a plagiarist. Later, Rogan uploaded a video of Carlos delivering a stand-up joke alongside footage of another stand-up delivering a very similar version of it. Carlos said that he felt humiliated by this. He later said, and I quote, "What am I supposed to say to someone who accused me of stealing jokes? But not his, and he's the one who's tried to ruin my career? I never tried to ruin his career. I don't know how to address that." In 2011, Mencia also revealed that he had undergone therapy to deal with the damage to his career. In our 9th spot, we have Miley Cyrus. On an episode of Rogan's podcast in which Miley made an appearance, she called him out completely. So the two were talking about Miley's love for RuPaul's Drag Race. Rogan went on to make a claim that drag queens lack originality, among other stuff. And then Miley snapped and defended the show by saying, and I quote, "That's what I think when I'm watching your shows too, you know? All the same stuff." Rogan was visibly shocked by that and didn't have a witty comeback. She completely just shut him down. Moving on to number 8, we have Caitlyn Jenner. Rogan has been caught a number of times making transphobic remarks. On one episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, while talking to Kim Kennedy, he started talking about Caitlyn Jenner, even using their dead name, which is a huge no-no. The comments he also made about Caitlyn were very disturbing, like saying transgender people transition because of their environment. In regards to Jenner, he said, and I quote, "Maybe if you live with crazy biatches long enough, they effing turn you into one. Maybe you go crazy. Maybe that too, especially those ones," end quote. Jenner responded defending herself and her family. She also said that Rogan's remarks were, and I quote, "not a joke. Joe Rogan has a lot to learn." In our 7th spot today, we have Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone is one of the many celebs coming after Rogan for spreading misinformation on his podcast. She decided to come forward and expose Rogan. She said, and I quote, "COVID is not an opinion-based situation, and Mr. Rogan thinking that his opinion or disclaimer for the lives he personally has affected and caused losses of is not an opinion. Mr. Rogan is risking people's lives with his idiocy." She continued on saying, and I quote, "He should put a disclaimer that he's an asshole hole and that his behavior is dangerous and affecting people's lives and deaths. So she definitely did not hold back one bit. In our 6th spot today, we have Bill Burr. Stand-up comedian Bill Burr also called Rogan out over the misinformation being spread on his podcast. In a recent episode of Rogan's podcast, the two were talking about face masks and debating about if they should be mandatory. And Bill took this as a chance to lash out at Rogan. He said, and I quote, "I'm not going to sit here with no medical degree, listening to you with no medical degree, acting like we know what's better than the CDC. Rogan just laughed at this and then sarcastically said, "Oh God, you're so tough." We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Trisha Paytas. Trisha Paytas is one of many individuals who have accused Rogan of being sexist. It all started in 2021 when one of Rogan's guests, Ali Makovsky, mentioned to Joe on his podcast that she had signed up to Trisha Paytas' OnlyFans account. Joe then looked Trisha up, saw a bikini photo, and then said, "Yeah, you can keep that," in reference to Trisha's body. Of course, Trisha was not gonna let this comment slide. So they posted a video on their channel titled, "Dear Joe Rogan." In the video, they said, and I quote, "Not every woman is here to be pleasure for your eyeballs. Just for future reference for people, attention trolls like myself that aren't me, you don't have to at somebody. Because chances are, even if they are the most beautiful person, maybe they have already at themselves." Moving on, at number 4, we have Chelsea Peretti. Comedian and star of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Chelsea Peretti is another celebrity to call Joe out for his sexist behavior. It started in 2011 when guest Joey Diaz was on his podcast, making remarks about how female comedians give sexual favors in return for stage time. Joe found this hilarious. Chelsea, on the other hand, did not. When the clip resurfaced in 2020, Chelsea tweeted, and I quote, "If you're a male comedian, one thing you can do is tell men to shut the F up when they are saying hateful shit about women and not go on podcasts that are racist and sexist. You can also speak up for women getting attacked online for sticking up for themselves, or total silence," end quote. This started a feud between Chelsea and the two men. Instead of apologizing though, they went on to say more sexist remarks. In our 3rd spot, we have Fallon Fox. Transgender MMA athlete Fallon Fox also had a lot to say in regards to Joe's transphobia. It started in 2013 when Joe weighed in on Fallon fighting. He said, and I quote, "First of all, she's not really a she. She's a transgender post-op person. The operation doesn't shave down your bone density. It doesn't change." But Fallon fought back, bringing up the discrimination that Jackie Robinson, baseball legend, faced in the early 1940s. They said, and I quote, "Remember when commentators said Jackie Robinson had an unfair advantage because black people had larger heel bones than white men he was competing with? Are we repeating history yet again with bogus bone claims?" In 2021, the pair got in a feud again when Rogan made a comment that generally dumb people now have an easy way to improve their reputation by changing gender. Fallon yet again called him out, this time tweeting, and I quote, "Joe Rogan is being transphobic yet again. He's had more transphobic episodes than you can shake a stick at. Spotify needs to cancel his show already." In our 2nd spot today, we have Prince Harry. For a member of the royal family to speak up about someone means you know that they messed up big time, or should I say royally messed up. Anyways, Prince Harry is another celeb commenting on Joe Rogan's misinformation. He said, and I quote, "The issue is in today's world with the misinformation endemic, you've got to be careful about what comes out of your mouth when it comes to that, because news doesn't exist in just news anymore." He continued on saying, "Just stay out of it. If you have a platform, with a platform comes responsibility." And in our number 1 spot today, we have Sunny Hostin. The View host Sunny Hostin went off on Joe Rogan 2 years ago on live TV. It happened after President Trump agreed to let Joe Rogan moderate a presidential debate between him and Biden. And Sunny put her 2 cents worth in as to why she thinks he shouldn't be a moderator.
I think given his use of the N-word, given his comparing a black neighborhood to Planet of the Apes.
She really gave it to Rogan, listing all the reasons why he would be the worst possible candidate for that role.
All of that disqualifies him to be the host of a presidential debate.
First up, Meghan McCain. Following Whoopi's controversial comments on the Holocaust, her former co-host on The View, Meghan McCain, decided to share her disappointment with the comments. For a refresher, the women were talking about the book Mouse and how it was banned in school in Tennessee. The book talks about the Second World War and what it was like to be Jewish during that terrifying time. Amid the debate about the book, Whoopi decided to share her opinion and argued that the quote, Holocaust wasn't about race, saying quote, if you're going to do this, now let's be truthful about it because the Holocaust wasn't about race. No, it's not about race. Joy Behar then clapped back, saying that the German leaders discriminated against the Jews because they felt they were a different race. Goldberg countered that it was not about race, rather quote, about man's inhumanity to man. Anna Navarro then chimed in saying it was about white supremacy and going after Jews and gypsies, though Goldberg doubled down and stated that quote, these are two white groups of people, which in her mind meant it was not about race. Following the episode, viewers were outraged at Whoopi's comments and called them dangerous and ignorant because she is completely wrong. Goldberg apologized on the episode the following day and read a statement from a member of the Anti-Defamation League, which stated that attacks on the Jewish people only happened because the Germans deemed them to be an inferior race. McCain decided to share her thoughts on Twitter as the scandal was unfolding, and she condemned Goldberg's remarks. She wrote, quote, I hate commenting on my old employer because I have moved on in every way a person can move on. That being said, I am an activist against anti-Semitism, and it's a big part of my life. The growing threat is real and everywhere. I'm heartbroken about what was said. McCain called the comments bizarre, incoherent, and even dangerous in a column she later wrote for the Daily Mail. Adding, quote, I'm not calling for Whoopi Goldberg to be fired, if only because I don't believe there is any universe where she could possibly do anything that could get her fired. She's the crown jewel of The View and a pop culture icon, and continued that she wanted the show to instead use this as a teaching moment to explain to viewers why she was wrong. McCain also wrote, quote, instead of half-assed apologies and bringing in experts in the anti-Semitism space, maybe dedicate an entire Hot Topic segment to discussing why what was said was so deeply offensive and dangerous. Instead of listening to McCain's idea, the network instead decided to suspend Whoopi for 2 weeks, which many felt is not a punishment and actually just a cop-out that will take attention off the situation. Next up, Bella Thorne. Whoopi Goldberg got in a feud with Bella Thorne of all people because the women of The View decided to talk about Bella Thorne leaking her own intimate photos after hackers threatened to do it without her consent in 2019. Intimate photos of celebrities leaked to the public is becoming a more common occurrence, with hackers able to hack into cell phones easier than ever. But Bella decided to do things differently and took control of the narrative instead of letting the hackers control her. Whoopi not only had a problem with Thorne's decision to publish the photos, she thought they should have never been taken in the first place, saying, quote, if you're famous, I don't care how old you are, you don't take pictures of yourself. Many felt this mindset blamed Bella for her decision rather than blaming the hackers for invading her privacy. Bella responded back on Twitter, writing, quote, Dear Whoopi, I have loved you for so long, but honestly I'm so displeased and saddened by your response to my leak. Blaming girls for taking the photo in the first place is sick and honestly disgusting. Adding, quote, your view on this matter is honestly awful and I hope you change your mindset as you are a show talking to young girls. George Bush. One of the worst moments in Whoopi's career happened after she made an offensive joke about former President Bush that got her blacklisted from the industry. At the Carrie fundraiser at Radio City Music Hall, Whoopi said a joke relating the president's last name to a woman's pubic hair, saying, quote, we should keep Bush where he belongs. Whoopi said this while gesturing to her crotch, quote, and not in the White House. The backlash started almost immediately, and Slim Fast removed her from its ad campaign in the days after. A statement from the company said, quote, we are disappointed by the manner in which Ms. Goldberg chose to express herself and sincerely regret her recent remarks offended some of our consumers. Whoopi responded to Slim Fast in her own statement, saying, quote, while I can appreciate what the Slim Fast people need to do in order to protect their business, I must also do what I need to do as an artist, as a writer, and as an American, not to mention as a comic. The Democratic National Convention also uninvited Whoopi from its 2004 events. Meanwhile, her acting job stopped coming for several years. Whoopi claimed in an interview that the joke greatly affected her career, and she was blacklisted for years after the scandal. She recently described this period to the New York Times Magazine, quote, for a good 3 years, I couldn't even get arrested. Her acting credits during these years are the smallest in her career. Bill Cosby. Goldberg got a ton of heat after she decided to defend Bill Cosby when the first allegations came out against him. On a 2014 episode of The View, when actress Barbara Bowman spoke about her claims, Whoopi responded, quote, quite honestly, having been on both sides of this, where people allege that you do something, it doesn't matter now, people have something in their head. I have a lot of questions for the lady, maybe she'll come forward. She also said the allegations would be more believable if the women would have come forward earlier and not waited so long, continuing that she is not going to make a judgment until she has all the facts. Many women did not like this, as it goes against the believe all women mantra that most women abide by in these situations. Then after lots of pushback, she later changed her opinion in 2015, saying she could no longer believe that Cosby was innocent until proven guilty, adding, quote, "If this is to be tried in the court of public opinion, I gotta say all of the information that's out there kinda points to guilt." Ray Rice. Another person that she controversially defended was NFL player Ray Rice in 2014. Rice was a topic of discussion on The View after his wife claimed that he hit her. Whoopi decided to defend Rice's actions after she learned that his wife hit Rice first. Whoopi said, quote, "If you make the choice as a woman who is 4'3" and you decide to hit a guy who is 6 foot tall and you're the last thing he wants to deal with that day and he hits you back, you cannot be surprised." Adding, quote, "I know I'm going to catch a lot of hell, but I don't care. You have to teach women, do not live with this idea that men have this chivalry thing still with them. Don't assume that's still in place." Goldberg had similar thoughts after Solange was seen hitting Jay-Z in an elevator. Whoopi believed that Jay-Z would not have gotten any flack if he had decided to retaliate, saying, quote, "I think Solange was quite ready for him to do whatever he was going to do. This is the thing, if anybody hits you, you have the right. I know that many people are raised in a different way, but if a woman hits you, to me, you have the right to hit her back." Goldberg added that if I slap a man, he has every right to slap me back. Of course, these statements were widely condemned, with many believing that a man should never put hands on a woman, regardless of the circumstances. And finally, Whoopi herself. Now that Whoopi is in a scandal dealing with anti-Semitism, people have been looking into her past and many are concerned about the origins of her stage name. If you didn't already know, Whoopi Goldberg is not her real name. It's actually Karen Elaine Johnson. We know the name Whoopi came because she's known for her flatulence. Videos of Goldberg passing gas are all over YouTube, so it's not surprising to find out that her first name is an homage to the whoopee cushion. When speaking about her name, she told NBC News that she was lucky she had gotten the name Whoopi versus Stinky, since she's known for the sound and not the smell. However, the second part of her stage name is where the controversy starts. Whoopi chose the last name Goldberg because she wanted to sound more Jewish. Her and her mother believed that having a Jewish last name would help her to get roles, which gives into the dangerous stereotypes that Jewish people control the media, which is far from the truth and is the cause of a lot of anti-Jewish rhetoric. During an interview with Vulture, Whoopi said, quote, "So you have people who say, well, why is your name Whoopi Goldberg? You just want to be a white woman? It's like, no, I've been black the whole time." Goldberg has said that she has some Jewish ancestry and that she took her surname from a faraway relative. However, she did admit that her mother preferred the name Goldberg to Johnson when she wanted to get into Hollywood. Goldberg's mother reportedly thought her middle name Johnson wasn't, quote, Jewish enough for her to succeed in Hollywood.